So today we want to talk a little bit about application portfolio management. And can you see my slide deck?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. I have 110 slides here. I do not intend to go through those slides.
As people start dropping off the call. Yeah.
There you go. But I guess the purpose for our discussion here today is to get some information from you. We're looking at scenarios where we are working with a number of different departments in a number of different situations, all around application portfolio management. And so on one hand, we have departments that have their needs. We have Treasury Board who has, some requirements around application portfolio management and other things. And we have QualiWare that, provides a certain level of capability, out of the box, whether it's in QLM or whether it's in the, on the website. And I guess based on our experiences so far, we're looking at what can we do to enhance the value that we're delivering, whether that's some custom development work on our side, or whether that's bringing together a group of like-minded departments and building something together. So really, this is meant to be an interactive session. I'm going to present a few things about, a few of the slides, go over to QLM, talk about both the QLM and the website there a little bit. And then I have some other slides that I do want to come back to where we break down some of the things that we're recognizing from some of our customers. So from an application portfolio management perspective, I mean, everybody has sort of seen the out-of-the-box desktops, that are available. Whether there's an application landscape or a business operating model, tying capabilities in, things like that. So we all know that exists right now. From a landscape perspective, out of the box, you can present, and click on and off different applications, and the different kinds of graphics or queries that you have built into the repository will be adjusted. Some of the slides from this deck are from older versions of QualiWare, but they're still present in the current version. So, everybody knows, when you're looking at it from the web, I can look at the description and see all the different things that are linked there. Go look at it in a context view, look at the capabilities that are being delivered. And these are QRVs that are readily available in QualiWare. I mentioned the context view or different kinds of heat maps and analysis on that. So again, available right out of the box. Looking at things, from a slightly different point of view, from a business operating model, and being able to drill down into the different parts of the business and see what applications are tied to that. Again, tying to capabilities as well. What systems are delivering what capabilities. So really linking different kinds of models together. Here's a QRV with, again, different capabilities, and how are those capabilities delivered? Whether it's through a system, different initiatives, again, providing that analytical capability to web users. I'm going to skip by a whole raft of these things, looking at, what are my top 5 applications and where does this data come from? So maybe it comes from an ERP or SAP or DRIMIS or your service management tool. We have the capability to pull that information in and present it, to your user community. to the people that need that application level, information, whether it's at a detailed technical level or at a strategic and costing investment level. I'll go through the menus when we're actually in the application. And again, a lot of you will already be familiar with those, but there are some I know that aren't, that are on this call. Here we're looking really at a way to structure and application portfolio management within QualiWare is based on a couple of things. One is the information system template, and one is the application architecture model. And through those and through connected templates, you have a complete view of applications, their components, their interfaces, and things like that, and who's using them, and what they're tied to, and what kind of information is relevant, to that particular application. So from an application portfolio management point of view, our experience so far with the Government of Canada has been very siloed. I have information that I gather because I have to report through Clarity to Treasury Board, and I have information that's in other systems or in QualiWare that I need to manage my application portfolio. But that's separate from how I deal with new initiatives and new projects and things like that. So the goal here is to bring things together. And again, we don't need to be the source of truth. We can be the presentation and relationship, the connection layer. Scoring. Everybody has different ways of scoring, and we've seen that in the various spreadsheets and things like that we have viewed from different departments. And then Treasury Board has its scoring as well. And I'll talk a little bit about that. Different life cycles. Where are things? So you can track all of your applications by dates, what stages they're in, and where are they in the life cycle, and what risks are tied with those applications. I'm going to skip by functionality. I have certain business functionality, application functionality that I have, and what systems are delivering that. So all of these are out-of-the-box queries and out-of-the-box views. I'm really not going to go through a lot of it, but the one thing that we have found, and actually since we're talking spreadsheets, we're going to talk a little bit about some work we've done there with the Treasury Board questionnaires that every department seems to be putting together, and that'll be a little bit later in the presentation. I actually want to switch over to, I'm going to change my view here. Here we go. And go over to QualiWare. If I can. There we go. Can everyone see my desktop?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what I was showing you in some of the slides are here right in the system already. Whether you use these menus or not, the QualiWare queries are already in your repository. So if I want to look at all of my architectures, my architecture framework models, I have those. And I can go select one of them, and I can get a deeper view on the actual information systems that are part of that landscape. Whether that's a cloud landscape, and that's new functionality that's coming in the next version of QualiWare, is the ability to model cloud environments. So there are some new models coming in the new release that will tie into this as well. You know, being able to look at those information systems in a simple spreadsheet. And what we have found is that this is the primary method that people are using for tracking application portfolio management information. Our CMP spreadsheet had well on the order of 160 plus columns that we ported into QualiWare, into various templates. And the ability to update this content, you know, interactively, to control, you know, who is responsible for what, and edit that information. Doing that in QualiWare makes sure that all of your content is up to date, as opposed to an Excel spreadsheet where do you have the most recent version of that, right? So being able again to go in and update that content and, you know, find the person who's truly responsible for for that information and have them in here. And again, here comes the decision. Am I using people or am I using positions that are responsible for that? Or am I using, and in QualiWare, it won't matter. I could put the position in here because the position is linked to the person who currently holds that position, as opposed to a spreadsheet in Excel. I don't have that capability, that ability to do that, to link to that other kind of content. Again, scoring, you know, whether you go with QualiWare's, you know, which is, you know, industry standard kind of scoring, or, you know, you decide that you need to map it in some other way. You know, creating those kinds of scoring attributes is a simple thing to do, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. So we have a variety of different ways of looking at content, you know, or the plans that are tied to that content, or what's my schedule look like for changes to those applications in the future, or what capabilities are currently being delivered. Everybody has to report to Treasury Board the capabilities within their organization. Seriously, those should be linked here so that people can understand, you know, what systems are going out of service and how's that going to affect a business capability or some other type of capability that I'm delivering. You know, from an asset lifecycle perspective, being able to look at those information system assets and what is happening to them over time. And we faced this when, you know, whether it's an information system or whether it's, you know, a series of ships or systems on ships. We faced this in a project where we were working with naval requirements, and they wanted to understand what their future capability was and what assets could be applied to that. And so they needed to know at the current, any moment in time, what's our current state of deployment. The same thing applies to systems. So whether it's at, you know, a high level, understanding risks, whether it's tied to capabilities or functionality, whether it's from a life cycle perspective, and again, applications or software or dependencies or my vendors and contracts, these are the things that a departmental APM group needs to know. Treasury Board, not so much. Or from an integration point of view with data mapping. So all of these capabilities are here right now, and on the QLM side, there's already built-in functionality here that can be used, you know, within QLM. So if your architects are not working in the web, if they're working primarily in QLM, you know, we can generate those different kinds of views, score views, Gantt views, and we can control what's displayed on the web. You know, whether we're showing some of the scores or not. From the people that are here, departments that are using any or all of this right now, any comments? Or is anyone? Everybody's on mute. Okay.
Everybody's
Or
very
they're
quiet
asleep.
this morning.
Yeah, this is Dan from CRA. We haven't used it yet, but it is something that we've looked at and possibly would pitch to the APM group about the possibilities of using it. One of the things that I think we struggle with a little bit is you mentioned that a lot of that functionality is tied to the information systems object right now.
Mm-hmm.
There's I guess more of a notion to use the Archimate language a little bit more rather than the default QualiWare object. So rather than using information systems, we would probably want to use application components. And then we're wondering if that APM functionality would work the same across those objects.
So the QRVs would have to be rewritten, but the base,
Yeah.
I mean, the basic concepts are there, right? So
Okay.
it's not, I wouldn't say it's a difficult thing to go through and, you know, edit and modify those QRVs to pull up the right information. It's whether and QualiWare has, one of the things that they have done is in QLM, and you can see this pretty easily in when you look at, if I look at an activity, all templates, please. Or, oh, I know, there we go. You know, if you look at a particular activity, one of the things that they have done, you know, all of the attributes that you would see in an activity, you know, all of these dialogues are carried over into the corresponding Archimate template.
Yeah,
right?
I did see that in the newer version. I have noticed that. Yeah.
That's right. So so Archimate as a notation essentially says, here are some layers, here are some shapes, how you choose them to join them together. Well, we have some basic rules around that. But if you want to add any attributes, if you want to add any fields, feel free. So QualiWare in the initial version of Archimate came out with a very bare bones set of attributes for different kinds of objects. And let me see if I can find one here that has has some information in it. So but what they've done is they have transferred some of the different attribute fields, you know, for different kinds of from their base product, and stereotyped those into the corresponding Archimate objects. So you could use all of the same attribute level information, you just have to point it to a different template type, right? Rather than the information system, you'd point it towards the corresponding Archimate template that you've used. Like QualiWare, Archimate, as it's evolved, has not sort of, because they have legacy users, all of the old layers that they no longer use or different models, they're still there. But, you know, the layered viewpoints, you know, some of the newer model sets, you know, those, that's really the, you know, where you'd want to make use of of the out-of-the-box templates, and those different. So you can see here all of the, here's the application component in Archimate, and you can see all the same things: product lifecycle, different lifecycle dates. This looks like standard QualiWare. So from here you can, again, the QRVs would have to be modified, but there's, they've already forged the path for you. Okay. So that's definitely, Archimate is one of the considerations that people are looking at for application portfolio management. I want to actually go to.
So just one other quick question is,
Sure.
So with your experience with other government departments, how many have been using the application portfolio management within QualiWare to either manage internally within that department and or reporting up to TBS?
I'd say there are lots that want to do it and are partway there. I would say that there are, CBSA is far enough, is probably further along on the Archimate path, but we have done a couple of proof of concepts with pulling the information into the standard QualiWare templates. What those departments have done beyond that, I'm not sure. Okay. So it's still, well, and that's part of the reason for this conversation, because we are still very early days with this, right? When people bring QualiWare in, typically processes an easy target, right? Processes and strategies and maybe organizational diagrams. Application portfolio management is a little more involved. I know D&D went down the path to a point, but I don't think their application portfolio management group followed through on it. I know that RCMP, we've taken their information into QualiWare, into a repository for them, but we did not address and that really was just a proof of concept because they wanted to get out of the spreadsheet world, right? Because regardless of how you're going to use QualiWare, right now, every department we've talked to is living in Excel spreadsheets. Unless they have built a custom system using Cognos or maybe Tableau or a couple of other things. But none of those systems address all of the issues that people have in application portfolio management. Let me go to a couple of slides here that I have. Slide number 104. I'm going to stop first at use cases. So things that we found, typical APM use cases: find an application and view the details. Find any or all application architectures and view and build those new models. Look at models where is my application used across my organization. Assessing the impact of modifying or decommissioning an application, as is and to be views, right? Modeling over time. Linking to functionality and business processes supported by that application. And I would say that this is an easy target for a lot of organizations. Whether you're going to use QualiWare for your APM or whether you do right now, your business users want to know what systems are supporting my business, what capabilities are being delivered by whatever application. We're doing some work with Global Affairs right now, and they have a system that tracks all this stuff. And we ask the question, so how does your business user find this out? Oh, they come to us with a query, with a question. And we then go and build some custom queries and try to pull that information together for them. It's an involved process. It's not a user-driven process. Hey, I just need to know this information. What we have found is that most application portfolio management systems have no idea what kind of information is residing in those applications or used by those applications. So we see these as architectural use cases. Whether you use something else for APM, we need that information inside of QualiWare from an architecture perspective to tie to business capabilities that your users are concerned with, to look at what information is used where in the organization. To look at system dependencies, because that's one thing that APM doesn't show. Most APM applications that we've encountered in the government and other areas don't show dependencies. We actually were talking with ESDC recently about those system dependencies and about how they could model APIs. So if you don't have your applications in QualiWare, how do you model out what your APIs are? What the classes, and you can use class diagrams to do that. QualiWare is looking at a thing called Open API and being able to use that to help model the linkages between applications. So again, regardless of whether you do your formal application portfolio management in QualiWare, that information at some level needs to be here if you're going to model those kinds of interfaces and understand the information that's flowing between them, because there is no other system that combines all of those things. Different project work, how is that affecting applications? And then performance scoring. So I'm actually going to go to, I want to be here. What we found in Government of Canada. So we find enterprise architecture and, look at Treasury Board says, talk to me about BIATs. Business, information, application, technology, security and privacy. So from an EA perspective, that can be handled in QualiWare. But meanwhile, you've got an application portfolio management function somewhere else. So if you're going to meet that Treasury Board directive, there needs to be some link between the business architecture and the business user community and that APM function, whether it's in QualiWare or not. If I look at organizational APM requirements that we've come across, it has to do with investment, it has to do with life cycle management, it has to do with application development and support. What gets impacted when a system is down, what data gets impacted if we've got a breach, through an application. Those kinds of things are common things that we've encountered in the departments that we've worked with. And how do they solve it? With Excel and Word, an in-house solution, Cognos, some kind of Power BI or BI solution, Clarity. So there are a couple of departments that are trying to use Clarity to manage their application portfolio management and then exporting parts of that to the loader for Treasury Board, for their APM reporting. The other thing that we encounter are questionnaires, because Treasury Board reporting isn't just about the technology side of things. They want business information as well. There seems to be a lot of manual effort involved everywhere, that we talk about this with departments. So this is kind of current state. Anyone else have anything to add here?
Just a question. You had mentioned that you did something with national defense. They had D&D looked into this and decided against it. Do you know any more details on that?
It wasn't necessarily that they decided against it. I think there were some funding issues
Okay.
And I haven't been, you might talk to Pascal here, who's on this call after the fact, or Vince Cannell, or anybody in the EA group there. But Vince was around at the time that we were, we were looking very heavily into that, and could probably provide some background.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay. Any other global affairs? They use a thing called Spectrum, which I think is a Cognos powered system that they've built. Some people are using SharePoint, but a lot of it is in Excel.
Kevin, you mentioned surveys.
Yes.
QualiWare doesn't have anything for surveys yet, do they?
That's my next
Something
slide.
easy? Oh,
That's my next slide.
Well, there's your introduction to your next slide, Kevin. Thank you.
No problem.
That's
Treasury Board requirements. I mean, so we have, we've got EA's requirements. If you're trying to, really build an enterprise architecture, applications are part of that. You've got organizational APM requirements. How do we manage those applications and support them over time? And then you've got Treasury Board that says, I need some information too. Tell me about your applications, and we're going to use Clarity to do that. All well and good. That was their choice. But Treasury Board also asks questions about capabilities. Give me a list of your departmental capabilities. Give me a list of your departmental services, things like that. And that's really tying back to the whole enterprise architecture framework, that however your department chooses to do it, if you're using QualiWare, it's pretty easy to pull that information out. Treasury Board has its capability model, and we have been involved with, and we know other departments have taken that base model and layered their own departmental capabilities on it, either as a decomposition of one of the Treasury Board ones at a higher level or as something separate. But there are certain reporting requirements that Treasury Board is looking for as well. Sorry, it wasn't the next slide. It'll be a couple, but it is coming. So out of the box, I mean, we talked about this, right? QLM functionality, information system templates, or the Archimate templates, predefined QLM functions. There are predefined QRVs and web functionality already there. We can replace those Excel spreadsheets. The benefit is the information is in your repository and is accessible by other users through custom QRVs, custom HTML dialog layouts, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But, the capabilities to manage this function, these applications, are there in the tool, or we pull the information from something else that you're using. So you asked me about questionnaires. So interestingly, as we have been working with PSPC and a little bit with global affairs, there's a questionnaire that they have that they send out to their users. And depending on who's responsible for that application, every person will fill out a separate questionnaire. And there's a separate questionnaire for each application. So we've taken that questionnaire, and you can see it, oh, sorry about that, right here in a QualiWare spreadsheet. How large is your user community? Does the application support a large transaction volume? Does it have time-sensitive transactions? And anybody who deals with Treasury Board reporting, I think, will recognize some of these questions, right? Some of them may be departmental only, but we've essentially taken those questions and put them into QualiWare, tied to an information system, so that somebody can then look at all of the systems that they're responsible for and answer those questions. Now, to be honest, this would be a lot easier if the questions were in the, in the first column, and my different systems were across the top. Is how I would have structured this spreadsheet. But QualiWare uses a third party to provide these spreadsheets. It's called Kendo UI, and they've integrated that functionality into the QualiWare tool. I've been having a couple of discussions with Jacob about the ability to reverse columns and rows. So that is something that they've recognized might be useful. So we may see that at some point in the future after we have some more discussions about that. But for now, this is what you're faced with in terms of putting this into QualiWare. Here's my questionnaire. So I'll pick on PSPC today because they're fresh in my mind. They have an Excel spreadsheet that has the first page that says pick your branch. And then it lists out the people, it highlights the people out of a big list who have an application within that branch. And when I click on that person, then I get to choose the application. And I have to then fill it out. And then if I have a second application, I have to fill out a second questionnaire. So it's not even as simple as here are my 6 applications, or 7 that I'm allowed to edit and change. And I can see them all in one place. And these 2 are related, so it's the same answer. So this is a simpler way to do that. And I can put that in a QRV. So now I can start to let's do some analysis on this, right? What's the level of necessity? I want to see all my citizen-facing applications. Is it time sensitive? Show me, filter it by my user community size, that kind of thing. So this is a way, and let's not even talk about going to the 3D visualizer, which is possible from this. So here are some ways that exist right now to pull those questionnaires in. And here's that questionnaire in a dialog layout. So if rather than a spreadsheet, I want to go in and edit that information system directly and enter my questionnaire, here it is. And I'm doing validation on that information all along the way. So now I'm going to edit that information. I'm going to create that information, and then I'm going to freeze that object. Now, next year, when I have to provide the same information, I'm going to create a new revision. And now I can go back and I will have access to previous revisions. What did I say 2 years ago? What did I say this year or last year? What am I going to say this year to that? So any application portfolio management system we've encountered so far does not give you any of that kind of revision management capability unless you've saved your questionnaire somewhere. So using the HTML dialog layout, I can query my, look at my template that I'm using as the basis for all of this. And I can create a specific questionnaire, or I could create a series of questionnaires from the web because I have different user groups that are going to answer different questions. So maybe my business users only see part of the picture, and my application guys who are responsible for those applications see a separate one. And so I've created several different HTML dialog layouts based on the user role. Again, the best, I would not suggest, well, this is through the HTML dialog layout for editing, or I could open an individual object and here it is, right? We've created a special dialog for PSPC APM questions. So I guess part of what I'd like to get out from people here today is, can we create a GC APM question? Or does it have to be specific by department? Or maybe there are some general ones. Maybe we should be looking at what Treasury Board wants, and we create a TBS APM questions and a departmental APM questions.
That would
So
be your best bet.
Sorry?
That would be your best bet. I believe I work at a couple departments and they're all using the TBS framework, the APM portal. However, some departments are more advanced than others, like ESDC, for instance, are using a whole SQL reporting capability. And they've developed some very, very fancy dashboarding and stuff, right? Other departments are using Excel, others are just, but at the end of the day, every department needs to report back to TBS at the end of the year. They have to provide a plan for mission critical applications, let's say investment planning for 3 years on all their mission criticals. So I think that would be a good start for sure. And if, there are departments that wants to go deeper, they could go and provide more extensions to those questions.
So
but they're pretty similar. Yeah.
So we actually created this. We didn't do a case maker change. This was actually created using the GUI. But the problem you face with the GUI, and frankly, something like this should not be done in the GUI. If it's a simple 1 or 2 attribute creation, you can see here how my questions are truncated. The GUI way of changing your meta model is not a great way for something like this. You should be using a case maker project to do this. Something of this level. You can then, once you've created the dialogue and the attributes that you want to capture, then you can use the out of the box content editing, dialogue manager, dialogue layout types of functionality in the tool, and spreadsheets to create custom, simpler spreadsheets, smaller spreadsheets. But frankly, to create labels like this, via the GUI, interface tools, customize, add dialogue, add attributes. We really do not recommend that way of doing it. We suggest you need to use case maker.
I think JR, I don't know if JR is on the call, but we found that the information system framework was very different from what TBS framework is, which would require some modification to the information system. And as you know, it's always harder to modify existing templates than to create brand new ones from scratch. Right?
I wouldn't necessarily say modify the whole template, but by adding dialogues that are not going to be over. So this dialogue here that we added to information system will never be overwritten by any kind of QualiWare change, because it has a unique name, PSPC, in front of it. And in actual fact, when you create an attribute, we suggest best practice is putting a unique identifier in front of that. And that way, QualiWare, as they continue to enhance their product, will never overwrite or interfere with things that you've built. So that's pretty standard practice or recommended practice. But yeah, you could create a brand new object, but frankly, not always necessary or advised if you can make use of most of what's there, because then you can take advantage of things that QualiWare continues to develop.
Okay.
Thank you.